Am I the antagonist for calling the police on my birth mother's children? I, 31 female, am adopted. My parents are wonderful and I had the best sister, 35 female, growing up. To me they are my family and I never had any interest in meeting my birth mother or any of my other biological family. 3 years ago I got a FB message from someone who claimed to be my half-sister. She was about 16 at the time and I was not in the position to start a conversation, so I ignored it and hoped she would move on. But she didn't, and instead she sent me 3 more messages in the middle of the night a few weeks after the initial message. I responded that I was not looking to connect, but I wished her and her family the best. Then I blocked her. A few months later, yet another account, yet another one of her kids, though I suspect it was the same girl, made contact again. I tweaked my settings for receiving DMs on there and Insta. Last year, then I noticed a number of messages that were sent via Insta from 4 accounts. Some were still very young, but it was more clear that all 4 of my birth mother's children were reaching out. One of them, from the same girl who had contacted me, said that they wanted to know me even if their mom didn't and they had always wanted a big sister. I responded to her since she was the oldest and legally an adult at that point and told her I was not interested and they needed to please leave me alone. A few weeks ago they showed up at my door, with the oldest showing how they had paid for someone to track me down as if it was a good thing / would make me want to let them in more. I was not happy. They were trying to get me to invite them inside, but I told them to leave, twice if not 3 times, and then I shut the door on them and called the police when they did not leave. My sister came over as all of this was going on, and they were rude to her in trying to get in. The police showed up and escorted them off my property. The whole ordeal was talked about in my family, and 2 of my cousins, who are also adopted, took offense to what I did. They said I was cruel to turn them away and I should get to know them because connecting with the birth family is so rewarding and how they will always be there. I told them my family will always be there. The ones I grew up with and love. They said considering some of them are still minors and they have been making these efforts for years now, I should never have been so harsh with them. Am I the antagonist? NTA, you are under no obligation to get to know these people at all. When you said no, they kept pushing. They have no right to stalk you. I understand that family is about the people who raised you and those you were raised with. Years and years go into those relationships. Someone just can't put a claim on you due to DNA, not like this. Clearly you are not in the headspace for family who you don't even know. And given that, you have nothing at all to offer them anyway. Others may look at you negatively. That's their own deal. Not yours. You did what you needed to do. NTA. You made it clear you didn't want to know them. They violated your wishes and privacy by finding your address, which is dodgy as F, and showed up unannounced. That screams crazy to me, and that they have no boundaries at all. Just because they are young doesn't give them a pass to basically pay someone to stalk you and intrude in your space when you obviously didn't want that. This blows my mind that the oldest, in particular, thought this was okay. You don't owe them a relationship or anything just because you may share DNA. NTA. You politely declined and set your boundaries. Turning up at your home after hiring someone to track you down is super creepy. These people are strangers. They could be related, but you don't know them, and you made it clear you don't want to. They ignore this over several interactions and turn up, uninvited, onto your property expecting a movie moment, but life isn't like that. Blood doesn't automatically mean family. You had every right to call the cops on them. Am I the antagonist for defending my dad and telling my wife that he didn't run our wedding pictures? Personally, I find this to be a really silly argument, but here we go. I got married recently, and for family pictures on my side we decided to do just my mom and dad, divorced, as both of their new partners came into my life as an adult, and to be honest, I can't stand either of them. My dad just assumed I wouldn't want his wife as she isn't really family to me, and my mom knows full well that I will never take pictures with her boyfriend after the things he has said about me. Neither said a word about this. We got the pictures back recently, and my wife is furious because my dad had his hands on my mom's waist. I really don't see why that is a bad thing. My wife said it was creating a false narrative that they were together. People were going to think it was weird, and our future kids were going to assume they were married at the time. I said it could be much worse. My mom could have been one of those crazy mother-in-laws claiming to me. My dad could have had his typical grumpy face. I thought the pictures looked nice. My wife disagreed, but I thought we put it behind us. We had dinner recently with my dad and his wife, and my wife gave him his copy of the pictures. She pointed out his hands and asked him why he took it upon himself to stage the pictures and why he thought that was an appropriate picture. He said it just seemed like the natural place to put his hands. He told her to calm down, which made things worse, and she began getting an attitude. I intervened and said that he did not ruin the pictures and to leave him alone. I said it was such a minor thing, and who really cares, but I did tell him to stop laughing as my wife being upset isn't funny. My wife feels I betrayed her and that I'm not even trying to see things from her point of view. JFC. Your wife is nuts. I'm so sorry. Also, not the a-hole, completely. NTA. Your wife severely overestimates how interested your future kids are going to be in the wedding photos. Besides, what did she want instead? For them to be screaming at each other or looking like they wished the other person was on the other side of the world, so there'd be no question to any outside observer they weren't together. And what exactly does she want done about it now? If she doesn't drop it, let alone stop throwing around ridiculous overreactions like betrayal, seriously, why do so many stories on this site involve people going there over the pettiest shit imaginable? I don't hold out much hope this marriage will last long enough for anyone to care about the photos. NTA, your wife sounds unhinged. The only people who should care are your parents' current partners. If she truly hates it, she can have his hand photoshopped off her waist. It's not up to your wife to police how your father poses for pictures at the wedding. As long as your mom was comfortable with the way they posed in the photos, that should be the end of the discussion. It's also pretty hilarious that she's concerned about your future kids being confused by these wedding photos, when any confusion takes 1 to 2 sentences to explain away. Am I the antagonist for highlighting that my wife sabotages her daughters? They are 11 and 13. I've noticed her telling them the wrong information at times, or missing out crucial information from instructions, and I believe it is to make them fail. I've noticed this pattern and begun to watch. For example, they have afro hair and she insists on brushing out all of their knots when their hair is dry, before they get in the shower. They sit silently, but they have pain across their faces as she tugs at their knots. I mentioned this at work, and one of my colleagues said her daughters should brush their hair when it's wet with conditioner on, as the knots will slide out. I noticed that my wife does this to her hair, but still insists her daughters sit and get their hair brushed out. One of her daughters wanted to bake a cake, and my wife laughed to me afterwards as she said she missed out a crucial step in the recipe and her daughter was upset when she failed. It really bothered me as it seemed to give my wife a sense of satisfaction to leave her daughter to struggle and watch her fail. One of her daughters didn't like one of my wife's that she had cooked. She's insisted the whole family follow her strict diet, and my wife then punished her silently by ordering her many ready meals and putting her on a ready meal diet for the next month, without any explanation. I gently approached my wife with this, and she is now giving me the silent treatment. Am I the antagonist? Your wife is abusing her daughters. This goes past whether or not you're the TA and goes into really disturbing. Your wife seems to hate her own kids. I assume they aren't yours, since you never say our daughters. NTA. But these girls are being abused. You need to intervene. There's entire subs devoted to people raised by people like your wife. NTA. But your wife has issues. This is emotional abuse, and I would even say physical abuse, considering the hair brushing. I'd consider letting her see a therapist to address this issue. And if she refuses or does not better things, it might be time to report her. Has she ever hurt people or things intentionally in the past? Maybe even small things? Like laughing at someone else for a failure? Your wife is a bully. She's picking on children who 1. Can't fight back and 2. Don't know to fight back. I suggest you start stepping in and pointing things out. Also, get your wife in counseling. She's got some unresolved issues that need to be addressed immediately. Am I the antagonist for kicking mother-in-law out of a photo shoot over her skirt? My wife's mother has a massive ego. Some examples include wearing what could have been a wedding gown to our wedding in a shade of pale blush, so bridal, sulking when we got engaged because she wanted to get engaged despite not having anyone in mind, announcing how beautiful her hair was at FIL funeral, demanding my wife's pregnancy not interfere with her destination wedding when she did get remarried, and sulking because our daughter was named after 2 other family members and not her. I see the effect this has on my wife. FIL always pitted them against each other because he was gross, and she feels like she has always had to share/compete with her mom. I'm not okay with that. Recently we had a photo shoot for our daughter's first birthday. Everyone was supposed to wear jeans and a white shirt, any white shirt, so mother-in-law could be somewhat fashionable. Mother-in-law made a whiny comment about how her husband doesn't own jeans, so now she has to go shopping. I flat out told her I wasn't aware his legs didn't work. She looked confused, and I said he can go shopping himself, so in mother-in-law's mind this photo shoot was off to a bad start. The day of mother-in-law showed up wearing a white top and a blue floral skirt. The flowers were really small, so it would mostly blend in, but I was furious that she couldn't follow directions. I asked my wife why she was okay with it, and she said, "Oh, you know how she is." I went up to mother-in-law and asked what happened to the denim. Mother-in-law said she wanted to wear a skirt and doesn't like jean skirts, and she just feels more comfortable in skirts. She wears a lot of skirts and dresses, but isn't against wearing pants. This was also short and tight with a slit, so I guess I know why she felt so comfortable. I told her that she would not be able to participate in the pictures. She protested that it wasn't fair as it was close enough and her granddaughter's birthday, but I said too bad, so sad. Her husband stood up for her and said she just wasn't comfortable in plain jeans and a white shirt, but I ignored them and we didn't let her in a single photo. NTA. You teach people how to treat you. Now she knows she can't just do whatever she wants when it comes to your family. I'm sure she also had time to tell you that she wanted to wear a skirt instead. She chose not to say anything and just rock up to the photo shoot as she wanted. She learned a lesson that day. Is this incredibly petty? Yes. Do I understand why you were being petty? Also yes. If I'd found myself in a similar situation with a similar backstory, I might not have done this, but at the very least I'd have been sorely tempted, or would have anticipated and not invited mother-in-law to the photo shoot in the first place. Unless this really upset your wife, I'm going to go with not the a-hole. NTA. This isn't about pants, it's about control. She wants to see how far she can step over your boundaries before you push back. Do not give this woman an inch. You're paying for the photo shoot, you said what the dress code was, it doesn't matter what she and her husband think. They are old enough to know how to follow basic instructions, and they should have done so or not shown up. Their age does not entitle them to behave poorly. Am I the antagonist for moving out when my dad told me to? I, 23 male, have always been a disappointment to my dad. I think he was just barely tolerating me. I didn't enjoy sports or any manly activities he liked. I enjoyed dressing up and doing makeup with my mom, and as I got older, I enjoyed the more traditionally feminine activities, and he hated that. As soon as my brothers were born, he just kind of ignored me. I think the last straw for him was last month when I came out to him. I have been out to my mother since I was 16, but have always hidden it from my father for obvious reasons, but was sick of hiding it and just wanted to be open about it so I didn't have to worry about keeping it a secret. My mom helped me tell him, but he still freaked the fuck out, yelling and screaming for me to get the fuck out and live somewhere else, so I packed up and left. Yesterday, I got a call from my dad sounding very defeated, asking me to come back since they need the money. I was helping pay rent and utilities, and now they are having trouble with money. I refused to go back and hung up. My mom's been supportive and doesn't think I should come back with the way he's acted and says that they will just have to figure it out. But I am getting texts and calls from my grandparents and uncle and aunt calling me an asshole because this affects my 8-year-old and 15-year-old brothers. Am I the antagonist? Unsupportive dad throws son out, then begs son for support. Your mother is right, they will figure out their own solution. Save up your money so you never need to fall back on them. NTAs tell him that your money is just as gay as you are, so he couldn't possibly accept it. NTA. He wasn't supportive of his son, so he gets what's coming to him. If you want to send some money home via your mother to help with your brothers, that's be a mitzvah, but you're under no obligation. And I know you know this, but you always deserved a dad who was supportive of you and your interests, and it sucks that you didn't get one. I'm sorry. Big love from a fellow queer. You know what really affects your brothers? A homophobic father and extended family who butt in when it's convenient, but not to help the person being scapegoated. It's not your responsibility to support your parents, brothers, that's your parents' role. Am I the antagonist for not wanting my sister to move in with my parents and I, 24 male, moved back in with my parents earlier this year to save on rent money. My sister, Marissa, 27 female, has an apartment 20 minutes away from where my parents and I live. Several years ago, she got into a relationship with a guy we thought she shouldn't be in a relationship with. I guess he and Marissa get along well, he just has a lengthy petty criminal record. He also totaled her old car a year into their relationship. Lo and behold, Marissa ends up pregnant. The boyfriend goes back to jail for some other petty things. Marissa decides enough is enough and decides to break up with her boyfriend. She's been living with my parents/I this summer while her apartment had some maintenance issues fixed. My parents apparently invited her to move in with us full-time once the baby comes so she can have help raising it. Am I the antagonist for not wanting her to move in? I work from home. I'm worried about a baby disturbing my sleep schedule. I'm worried about a baby disturbing me while I'm working. Marissa told my parents that she'd be fine living in the basement to not disturb me, but I feel like it's spoiling her to have her allowed to move in. She put herself in this situation and has an apartment of her own. I haven't talked to Marissa about it since my mom told me she might move in. I came home from that conversation and just went to my room to cool off some. Am I the antagonist? Edited to clarify, my sister's lived on her own for several years and now only wants to move back with my parents because she got pregnant by a guy we all thought would be bad for her. If she hadn't gotten into a relationship like that, she wouldn't be moving back in. YTA. Pregnancy aside, why is it okay for you to move in with your parents to save on rent, but if she wants to move in with them, it's spoiling her? It is your parents' home and therefore up to them who they want living with them and what kind of environment they want their house to be. If this change means that you are no longer happy staying there, move out. YTA. It's your parents' house. If you don't want to live with your sister, move out. ETA, and you feel like it's spoiling her to let her move back in? Look in a fucking mirror. So, it's perfectly fine that your parents allowed you to move back in with them, but it's not fine that your sister is allowed to do the exact same thing? YTA. You ran back home to mommy and daddy because you wanted to save money on rent. They were kind to let you move in, rather than make you suck it up and be an adult. Your sister was invited to move in by your parents, into their home, when the baby arrives. She likely needs the help, and your parents seem like they want to be involved grandparents. This doesn't make her spoiled. You are a guest at your parents' house, as is your sister. Neither of you can control and dictate who stays and who goes. Only your parents. If you're so worried about your sleep schedule and work, move into your own place. You're selfish and entitled. Poor you.